Here we go. All right. We are live.
All right.
And we are, hold on, Zoom is still thinking.
It's thinking.
Here we go. We are officially live. All right. So welcome, everyone. Here we are with the famous Tom Harris, who just got his second COVID vaccine shot, and he's feeling a little rough. And we have Andrew.
Feeling it, guys.
Andrew Latreille? How do you say your last name?
It depends if you're Australian, French, or American, I think.
So what's
I say Latreille, but the French would say Latreille or something like that, but I can't do it.
Fair.
And so it is French, right? And then it got transported. Is that, but not French Canadian, French, right?
No, French via Ireland, via England, via Queensland to Melbourne to Canada.
Okay, because I was going to say, I don't know if the Canadian menu came from Quebec. I went to school in Vermont, so I'm aware of the whole situation over there. So, in any case,
you've almost circumnavigated the globe. You just a couple more stops.
I know. You could have just went next door.
Yeah, that's right. But there are quite a few Latreilles in Quebec, though. But I don't think they're actually a relation.
So you went from the Canadians kicked you out, you became a convict in Australia, and now you're back in Vancouver photographing architecture. Just making up a story. In any case, Andrew is a phenomenally successful photographer based in Canada. Why am I dropping things left and right? Based in Canada, but from Melbourne, Australia. Is that correct? And
that's correct.
Has some phenomenal work. And Andrew tonight, he's been kind of on me. He's like, come on, we got to chat. We have so much to talk about. And I'm like, all right, because we've been going back on Instagram for years and years, just sort of talking about the state of the industry and techniques and working in Canada and Australia and America. And we all kind of wonder at each other's businesses and such. So I'd like to get started with showing some of Andrew's work. And I'm going to go
I just need to say there's been a fair bit of shit giving there in there, Mike, as well.
Say again?
There's been a bit of shit giving in there as well.
In the chats.
Yeah.
In the chats, yeah. Slangy, throwing, sorry.
While I pull your work up, give us your origin story. How did you become photographer of architecture? What was your sort of path into that? Were you an architect, or did you just pick up a camera one day? Did you get a lucky gig and decide this is what you had to do?
Well, I was an architect. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still am an architect in theory, I suppose. I suppose I am. And I was pretty lucky years and years. My dad's an architect, right? And years ago, he had a guy called John Gollings who went through university with Dad. He was doing all Dad's photography. John's still practicing. And he photographed a couple of Dad's jobs, and I think I must have been a teenager, and I got to go along to the shoot, and I thought that was pretty awesome. I majored in photography at high school. Then I went into architecture, did architecture for a bit, and then when I got over here, I was lucky enough to go on another shoot with my current employers, and they'd commissioned a guy called Nick LaHoo to do the work, and I got to see what a 21st century digital, like photographing a cabin on an island, and I was just like, holy cow, this is back where I want to be.
This picture is amazing.
It's been
I just have to interrupt. I'm shocked at how good this picture is.
Thanks, mate. I don't think I've ever pushed that one on your Instagram, that one.
This whole set is absolutely wild. So you were with Nick, and what year was that? Was that recent? That was probably what, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, I think that was 2010.
Okay.
2010, I think, or 2009, one of the two. I can't remember.
And you shoot all kinds. I'm looking. What is this? A library here? You do all kinds of. You're not just a specialist, but you do residential. You do civic, you do cultural, you do commercial, you do high rises. I've seen a few high rises in here.
Yeah.
And
you'll find a prison in there somewhere.
What's that?
You'll find a prison in there
said.
somewhere. Yeah.
And you also have a
probably under Civic.
team. There's 5 of you working together, right? Was that what I read
let's
correctly?
hear about the team a little bit.
Yeah. It's not just you.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just me and it's just Tom, and we have assistants and retouchers, but no one on staff. How did that come about?
So
That's pretty in this world.
there's I think there's 2 reasons to that. One, I like having people around, and we all know that it can be pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Being a architectural photographer, it's just you in the buildings. I mean, sometimes I love that, but I've always valued how if you have a sort of group of ideas and a group of minds, you can something greater can come out of it.
Yeah.
It's not always just one opinion.
Yeah.
So that was I think that was pretty intentional when I first started. It was like, I want to have other people involved. I don't want it to be just me.
So what does the team look like? What are those other people? What is their role?
So, I mean, I've got a first assistant who who does quite a bit of the digital work as well. So I like to be able to, if someone's assisting, we have this talk about let's say it's a house, what a project's going to look like, how it's going to feel. You talk through all that during the day. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I was to outsource that and send that out to someone else, or try and find the time for me to do it, or if I've got to outsource it, I've got to recommunicate that to someone else.
Right.
So it's been really good having assistants doing the digital work. I mean, I always do final checks on everything. And it helps them grow as well, which is important to me. They're all much younger than me, and
it also helps to have had their eyes on set, because the colors and things it's so easy to get lost in the photographic process, and if you were there, you can remember back to the materiality of the space and really get it right. So I find that always helps.
Totally.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely struggle with, is how do you communicate the right colors, the right atmosphere to a retoucher who's not there, right? And it can take a lot of back and forth.
Do you guys use
dialed in?
Yeah. Do you use color checkers at all?
I don't.
No.
Rarely.
I mean,
yeah.
I have about 3 of them, but they don't always come out, right?
Yeah.
So
if nothing else, it's nice to have the picture of the assistant standing in the shot with the X-Rite color checker chart, right? But just as like a piece of work itself. But I don't use them very often. I haven't found them to be terribly effective, just because there's no one color temperature of light in the space ever. So,
I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole here talking about.
I know. I'm like, is this our first rabbit hole? Yeah. I've never been able to figure out how I know how they work, but I can't get them consistent. So I have one in the bag for when I'm doing like a furniture shoot, and I know that the color of this is, ultramarine blue or something, so that we're not wildly off. But on location, I find it's really difficult, especially when I'm photographing a house or something. So I have one for, the advertising stuff. It has one at hand always. Mine looks like it's been
this one. I don't think you can. I got told I shouldn't use it because it's got scrapes and marks on it.
Yeah, it starts to deteriorate after a while.
$100.
But I find like I'm just so often trying to convey a mood, and I end up messing with the colors intentionally anyway. And as annoying as this is, I find that the iPhone is really good at nailing the colors of a scene, like better than my camera. So I'll send the iPhone shot to my retoucher, and I'll be like, make it look like this, but make it better.
You sound like some of my clients, man. Nothing bothers me more is when they send me an iPhone shot of the wood on a shoot, and they're like, make it look like this. And I'm like, reflecting a big blue window behind them and stuff, and I've lit the space with strobes and stuff. Oh boy.
Yeah.
It does work well though.
Yeah. On that, like, have you guys ever photographed architectural models?
Yes.
I have not.
Yeah. So like they come in and they scout it with a little lens this big with infinite depth of field. And then they're like, why can't you do that? Because my lens is like this big and it can't get that close.
Yeah, but good luck explaining that to them in actual understandable terms in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
It's the same as when they show you a rendering view and they've turned off the columns and put the camera inside the wall. And they're like, this is what we want. And I'm like, what?
I have been dragged into an architect's office, quite literally almost by my collar, and yelled at saying, this is the render. Why can't you take that photo? And I'm like, let's get in an Uber and go down and look at the high rise across the street that was not built when this project was conceived of 10 years ago, that is halfway under construction. And you tell me why I couldn't get that shot. So it's always sort of a struggle. But I also find that like when you have that situation where why can't you take this shot, you end up sort of art through adversitying. Can I use that as an adjective, an action phrase? You end up art through adversitying into something that is even better than just can you just get a shot of this? Well, yeah, here's the limitations I have and how can I overcome those to make something even better?
Yeah. So Andrew, you said you have
current as well.
Yeah. You said you have a first assistant and they do some retouching. What else? Who else is on the staff?
Yep. So there's a second assistant as well, because you guys know what it's like in the crazy busy season. You're just like going so hard. You're just trying to get everything into the hard drives you can. And I feel that I can do 4 or 5 days straight, but by the end of the 4th or the 5th day, I'm a bit of a mess. So I need someone fresh to come and keep me not being a mess.
I like that.
Yeah. And then you guys are probably, probably getting this, like lots of requests for drones all the time. I was laughing just before, Mike, because we did a drone shoot last week and we would have had to back the drone into another building probably by about 20 feet to get the shot they wanted. So we literally couldn't do it.
How many drones have you destroyed? Any? Because I've just destroyed 2. And I wonder if the assistant would help. Both times I destroyed them, there was an assistant on set. So I wonder about their
spare parts.
I'm talking like full speed into a tree situation.
Well, I actually lost one into the ocean.
Oh boy!
Because I put it up in winds that were a little bit too strong. So I still have the controller. It got blown out to ocean.
Hopefully that was a cheap one. By the way,
no, it was a Mavic 2 Pro.
What is the difference in the first assistant and second assistant? How do you differentiate their roles? I've had a few people on set before, like a digital tech and a first assistant and a stylist, and it's pretty clear. But how do you sort of draw the line there?
Well, I very rarely have them both on set at once.
Sure. Okay. You just have the main person and a backup, more or less.
Yeah, it's down to experience, really. Like, definitely down to experience. And now, in COVID time, actually, we've got a job in a couple of weeks where we'll have 2 on. Okay. And one of them will literally just be a furniture mover for the day. And the other one will be able to touch the camera equipment. But it's only me and them.
Fair enough.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so those are on set. Now, do you have someone doing the books and doing the invoicing or the emails? What are the other roles?
Bookkeeper. You've got to have a bookkeeper, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I have a bookkeeper, but she's not.
That's the best money.
Not on staff. She's on the other side of the country, and she spends a few hours on a month.
You guys did. I do all this
Mine's
shit
in Toronto.
myself,
I've never met him. You got to have a bookkeeper, mate. It's the best money you spend every month.
Well, it makes
the end of the year so easy.
I pay mine way too much, and it's just tax time. I don't want to know how much I owe. Just tell me. Just leave my bank account without asking permission. But are they? Are they in your office? Are they doing emails for you as well? Or are they just doing the books?
No,
separately?
I'm doing 90% of the communications.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually he was trying to keep everything up to date on a monthly basis. And I'm just like, I don't really need to see everything, all the expenses on a monthly basis. So we're actually just moving into a quarterly one now. So every quarter, he's just got to make sure we're up to date. And then I can spend a day going through the past quarter and go, ooh, that costs too much, or, or whatever. Or why did I buy a new drone? I don't have it anymore.
Because you flew your other into the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tom, you're doing it all on your own.
Yeah, I do.
Is that what I heard?
I just do it. I do everything. I do all my retouching in my books
Oh
and
my God. We got to get you on the
I have an assistant though.
bookkeeper train, man.
I guess so.
You're not doing your own taxes, are you? Are you doing your own taxes too?
No. I have a tax person. Yeah. So I just got off the phone with him last night, and that's done. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And then
the fact is, like the bookkeeping for a photographer, an architectural photographer, isn't exactly difficult.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got invoices and we've got expenses.
Yeah, that's it.
And they're all pretty consistent. And you've got equipment that depreciates over time, but that's it's not like you're buying 10 new cameras every year or anything like that.
When you're shooting, is there a second camera, or is it always just you on one camera, or do you have an assistant also shooting?
Sometimes we'll run a second camera.
Yeah.
For a big
Not
dusk.
very often. Do you guys do that?
Big important dusk.
Yeah. If you got, dust's the perfect example of a time to run a second camera.
Yeah. I do it rarely as well. I'll stick a assistant, on a camera, and I'll be on the other side of the building, 2 blocks away doing my thing, and he's just bracketing every 3 minutes or something until it's prime time, and he does the job. Speaking of cameras,
don't blow the highlights. Don't blow the highlights.
Yeah. Just bracket. We have a couple of questions, Andrew, about your camera rig. I know you use some medium format and you do a couple of different things. You want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Can do. Where are the questions? Or are you going to
use phase? Is that right? Oh yeah, just somebody said, what camera system are you using? Someone said mirrorless or DSLR. Yeah. So maybe you just want to kind of just briefly, we try not to get too deep into gear on these things, because I think we all are of the school that like gear is important only to a point where like you need to be able to get your job done with it, and beyond that,
I've shot with Sonys and Canons and Pentaxes. I'm using for the majority of the time a medium format Arca with a phase back now. And it was. It's doing
a view camera Arca?
Yeah, it's one of the plate cameras, so it's not a bellows.
Yep. Okay, got it. Yep.
And it's doing probably 95% of the jobs now, whereas before this new back came out, it was only doing about 50. I think when you were at Hydric Blessings, you remember how annoying those CCD backs were.
Yeah.
Was
2 shoot areas with the P45.
Yeah, painful. But I can move almost as quickly with this as I can with a DSLR.
Really?
Now, which is cool.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to hear.
Now,
things have changed since the P45 Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, you can zoom into 400% and focus. It's like cool.
Oh, nice.
Are you always tethered, or you always tethered, right?
I'd say it's 95% of the time.
Yeah. I mean,
same.
I do like the quality that you get. It's cool, especially when you're printing medium format. I just feel like it's so slow. And I'm always trying to tell people to slow down, and here I am, like too slow. That's too slow.
It's not too slow, mate. Come up to Canada and we'll run around. I'll show you how quick it is.
All right, I would absolutely love to. But we have another. We get a lot of questions, and I want to segue. I want to spend a bit of time on this. So, Ethan Tweedy says,
Usage.
we're going to pivot here.
Yeah, let's do
Can
that.
we discuss why architects think when they hire you, they can give all the images to other people on the project? What is the protocol here? And that kind of matched up with one of
before
the
we
questions.
jump
What's that?
Before we jump into that, I just want to say that before we jump into that, I think we should just point out that like the way that question is phrased, like why architects think they can do that, like that's partly a problem of you not doing your job to educate them on like what the protocol is.
And it is an aggressive
so just
question.
like let's just keep that in mind. Like a lot of architects are really, really good about this actually.
Right.
And others need education. They need to be taught, what the protocol is.
I do feel like
it's been a pretty
I've been like, I gotta say this. Is that there's this sort of a lack of, and I don't know if this is the case. And of course, I've had people sign a contract and then turn around and do the exact opposite of the contract. I have also had people where, clients who I didn't have them sign a contract and exactly what you would expect to happen happened. It was a free for all. It was a feeding frenzy on the images. But I think a lot of photographers are afraid to really have someone sign a contract before the job begins that clearly outlines, especially if you're working with clients. I don't think it's just architects, clients who haven't commissioned photography before, which is something I deal with fairly often. I don't just photograph things for architects. I photograph things for retail. I photograph things for, developers. I photograph things for real estate agents. I photograph things for designers and furniture companies and you name it. I shoot everything under the sun. And there is a spectrum, and where people, I have people who, without saying a word, they will bend over backwards and be like, I just want to make sure I'm not stepping on your toes. Every photographer is different. We have an archivist that we work with, and they will file everything away and you'll be properly credited. And I'm like, you're amazing. And then I have clients who are like, wait a minute. And completely innocently, they'll say, I thought I could do anything I want with the photos because I paid you to make them for me. Just like if I paid a woodworker to make me a cabinet, I can then put it anywhere I want. You know what I mean? And so it is a struggle. And then I get guys like AJ and Tom, and you say you don't use contracts and you never have a problem.
Yeah.
Just today.
All right, we want to hear from Andrew. I
initiated 3 infringement cases. I just paid a retainer to my lawyer to go after 3 infringement cases, and these are serious global companies, a huge global company, a pretty big architect with offices like in New York and LA and London and everything else. And then just a minor one here in LA who's being stubborn about paying the price for the images. So it's like, I don't know if it's a me problem or if like, maybe I'm just not, maybe I care too much. I have been told that I care way too much. So let's start this off. Tom, what do you, I think you're kind of unique in that you came from a background where a lot of your clients have been previously educated by someone like by the Hedrick Blessing firm on how this works. Right?
Yeah.
And Andrew, I don't know where you are on this, if you're working with people who, if you shoot for everyone, or I think you shoot mostly for architects, right?
It's, the majority is architects. There's contractors and engineers mixed in, outside built environment people, right? Yeah. Some developers as well. And developers are a different kettle of fish.
And so do you think that is it a clarity thing on the behalf of the photographer? Or do you think maybe that some of these people have worked with other photographers who just don't care? And they're like, oh, well, so-and-so doesn't care. And they let me give the images to whoever I want. And I've already been hired and paid off. And that's the end of it. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I come across that weekly in Vancouver, but that's a big problem. It's a problem because it's not good for the industry long term. But like you're saying, like I got an e-blast email on the weekend with a photo of mine advertising a piece of furniture.
And
I know that client.
Yeah.
Oh, I've sent them an email. I haven't heard back yet. But I know that client did not pass that on to them. So
they just pulled it
I
off their website.
had a discussion with them. or Instagram. It's been posted on Instagram a number of times.
Sure.
You know, it's like, it's small. You know, it only has to be 400 pixels wide. That's the thing. But talking with another friend who's been involved in a retail company, he was like, I bet that their marketing person just grabs anything, and they're like, if half of them email us, we're still half ahead.
Right. Yeah.
If only half the people follow up, the other half haven't, so we'll be fine.
Right.
So
yeah. Do you chase that down then? Like, do you have a lawyer involved or? Okay.
Not yet. I always try and do it softly first. I'll write a nice, if it's on Instagram, you know, if it's an ad on Instagram, which seems to be happening more and more, I'll write a nice little post, say, hi, thanks for posting the image. I don't believe so-and-so company had a license to use this image. If you'd like to see the full range of proofs, I'd be happy to forward them on to you along with the licensing options. And every time I've done that, I've ended up selling more than one, licensing to more than one image. So
sure.
And educating people in the process, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
See, maybe I just suck at writing emails because, and maybe I'm just too sensitive. I don't know. I could be, but I feel like, you know, I draw the line. Like if someone on Instagram takes a photo of mine and reposts it with credit and tries to make an effort to like put my credit, check out this amazing shot of our project by Mike Kelly. I'm like, okay. If they just take it and they write a whole spiel and I'm not anywhere in it, I lose my freaking mind. And I know some people, you know, it's like, should I be happy? I'm glad they liked the photo, but they never made an attempt. And it's just so weird because like Instagram is it's just double-edged sword, right? Where your work gets seen, but it's also like there are companies their sole marketing effort is Instagram. They're not doing print ads. They don't even have a website, and they're selling furniture and advertising, you know, whatever product it is. And they're just using Instagram to build their business. And I'm like, should I get really mad about this? Like there's so much gray area. And I know that there's photographers who just don't care. And I almost like gaslight myself. I'm like, do I just care too much? I make a pretty good living. Is this the hill I want to die on? And it's a constant, like, this is why I need therapy. You know what I mean? Like, why am I always, you know, and is it better to just be cool, man, and just let it go? And why you gotta be such a hard ass dude? Just let them use the picture. It's only Instagram. And then a day later, you know, someone will post something and I'm like, oh, come on, man. I see you drive up to the shoot in your Lamborghini SUV. Like you could have copped me a couple $100 to do this properly. But it could also be a regional thing. It's LA. You know what I mean? It's a pretty dog eat dog city. And I don't know if the Canadian stereotype is true that people will ask permission and be a lot, you know, more on the up and up with it. But I'm always, this is just me like having a confessional, like I'm in Catholic school here. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do, Mr. Priest? Like, do I get angry? Do I let it go? Because it drives me nuts, you know? And I'm just being totally honest about it.
Do you sleep on it?
Always. And then I wake
Before
up
you send an
in the
email?
same.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's water under the bridge eventually, you know, but I think what I would like is at the very least, hey, it's so difficult because some of these businesses, that is their only marketing effort is Instagram. And you know that they're using it commercially. And if an architect came to me or a lighting manufacturer came to me and said, we want to use a picture of this in our brochure, I would be like, pay up. But if someone does it on Instagram, it's okay because there's this like perverted thing about it just being Instagram, even though that might be their only form of marketing. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, I'm always in this headspace where it's like really difficult for me to get angry. I am angry, but I'm like, should I be angry about this? That's my work being stolen. And, you know, I think one of the best and worst things about photography is like, we made a choice to work in a field that deals in intellectual property. And that's how we make our money, is by relicensing, whether it's a song, a picture, a movie, a photo, whatever. We made the choice to go into that. and it comes with its risks and pitfalls, but it can also be very lucky, and we can be very lucky and make a lot of money by redoing that. And essentially it's like, we've already been paid for the work, should we be paid again? So I don't know. I'm done. I'm totally done. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on it, because this is something. Look at the comments are going crazy in the YouTube chat. Like everyone's like, I gotta catch up over here. So I just want your thoughts.
How do I see this? Do I got to go onto YouTube and then I can see the comments? Is that what I got to do?
Yeah, if you pull up the YouTube page, there'll be a scroll of comments just next to it.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so Gary Gomez said, where do you draw the line on online publication? This is a big struggle for me personally. I want to sell those licenses, but nobody pays. It benefits my client, but they view me as stingy. So yeah, I mean, if you outline your terms to your client, I don't have a contract. I have a 1-page usage outline that just says, this is what you can do with the images, and this is what you can't do with the images. And like, this is when you have to refer people to me. Now the problem here is that like you have people who are taking the images without asking you or your client, but yeah, I mean, basically, Gary, if your images are being taken and used without the permission of you or your client, then they're being used in a way that's not okay. Yeah. So you can chase them down all you want. You don't need to worry about people thinking you're stingy. It's not part of the outline. So all right, this is turning into the Tom and Mike hour, which is not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So Andrew,
Mike, I'm just going to say, Mike, I mean, that article on AP Almanac from like, I don't know, 2 years ago on licensing, that's everything, right? Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with everything that's on it. And I send every student or any person that wants a young up and coming photographer, they ask me questions and I go read that first, then come to me with questions, because then you've educated yourself a little bit. And then you'll actually, I'm not just going to spoon feed you, right? Because when I made the move, and I'm assuming, Tom, spending time at Hardwick Blessing, you got exposed to a fair bit of this, right? So it sort of came innately to you. But when I shifted from architecture into photography, I had to teach myself everything. And I researched and asked other mature photographers how they did it, and came up with something very, very similar to what Mike has in that article. And I think it is up to us totally to educate the clients.
Yeah, right.
Because the industry needs us to, basically.
Right. Well, it does, and it's not an innate part of their learning, right? Like they're not taught this in architecture school. It's something that they need to be educated about, and that's your job, basically, if you want to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, I take a couple of practicum students from one of the local schools here every year, and they get told there's licensing, but that's about it.
Right.
Yeah. And they're, I think they've got their grad show in a couple of weeks, and then they're out there and they're pros. It's like, how are they going to find out? Like if we don't tell them, then the industry is just going to spiral more quickly.
And it's almost like, and part of me is just like, is it my job? Is it our job? Whose job is it to do this? You know what I mean?
It's our job if we want to get paid.
Yeah,
I agree. And how much effort, like, I have the blog, and the blog basically started as a dump for me to rant on. I was like, I need to get this off my chest. And I'm glad that it's become such a valuable resource. I see people in the comments, talking about it, but I wish that there was more of a, like just a push to get photographers, educated on it. But I also think even within America and outside of America, there's such a regional difference. I get letters, I get emails or whatever, and the people are like, what you're saying is never going to work in England, India, Poland, wherever, these people may be. And they just tell me it's a free for all. And once I take pictures, there's no recourse for me to try to do this. And so, like, is the writing on the wall? I hope not. you know, and but you know, it just seems like the faster and faster architectural photography seems to go and the wider it spreads, it seems like there's, you know, we have a lot of work to do to keep that.
Yeah. I think another important thing to think about is that you need to be charging a rate that's fair to you without you selling the images to a bunch of people, right? So, I mean, you know, if you're counting on just usage being half the income, like you're going to be in trouble because, you know, not all your jobs are going to be worthy of you know, suppliers buying the images, and then, you know, a quarter of them are just going to get stolen essentially. So, you know, I look at it as like just icing on the cake. I charge, you know, a good amount of money, and I let my clients, like my rate includes some usage for them to spread it around amongst their contractors a little bit. So it's kind of baked into the cost for me, which helps because I don't really need to worry about it quite as much then.
But then then when like a big window manufacturer or someone comes in and wants to use one, that would be a separate thing.
Yeah. And that's usually
good. That's quite smart, Tom.
Yeah. So if we want to get into the nitty gritty of it, Hedrick Blessing developed, we used to have the architecture rate and the multi-client rate. So you could just buy the architecture rate, which is the architect gets to use them, that's it, or multi-client, which was that they could sell the images for up to the cost of the photo shoot to as many clients as they wanted. And it was about time and a half, right? So it'd be like 150% of the cost of the architecture rate. So that's the only rate I have. So I essentially threw away the architecture rate. I charge 50% more than I maybe would otherwise. And I let them, so if it's a $4,000 shoot, they can split it up among 3 different contractors, offset their whole cost. And then after that, I require that they send any other inquiries my way, or after a year goes by, then I have them send inquiries my way. So it helps because, I mean, I'm sure I get more work because of it, because, you know, these small firms it's simple and they can offset their costs because you know, architecture firms, when they do a photo shoot, it's a $4,000 cost for them, but it's also 7 people over the course of an entire weekend. Like it's a huge time investment, you know, like they are putting in a lot more than that $4,000.
And then there's the landscaping and
we did a shoot we did a shoot last year and it was out of town. I had a principal and his wife and his kids acting. So we know what it's a big multi North American firm. And I had 5 of the staff there, and they were there for 2 days before I was there and a day when I was there. Like you just add up the non-billable hours there. And then you get someone I think the glue lamb supplier asked me why the individual photo was so expensive. Right. I'm like, you got no idea how much this shoot actually took to put together. There's my fee, but then there's all of that on the architect,
which is far greater than your fee.
What I charged. Yeah, far greater.
Right.
One of my favorite stories is I shot this office in downtown LA maybe a year or 2 years ago, and we do it on the weekend. And on these big commercial buildings, they turn off the HVAC on the weekends because to air condition a 6-story tower in downtown Los Angeles in June is preposterous. So my client requested that they leave the air conditioning on the floor we were shooting. It cost $7,500 a day just to air condition the floor.
Yikes.
And we were there for 2 days. That was, and I'm charging like $4,000 or $6,000 a day, whatever it came out to be. And they paid more for just to turn the air conditioner on so we could actually work than the shoot costs. And they had their staff come up.
Yeah.
The principal showed up for a half an hour. You know what I mean? It's like the cost beyond the actual hiring of the photographer can just get wild on these bigger, especially out of town, and people are flying in and stuff. Oh my God. So that's why the license,
There's a tower in downtown for a New York firm I photographed years ago, and the rendering photo was from the president's suite. The president's suite is $20,000 a night from the hotel opposite.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, we'll give you the photo rate. You can have it for 15." I needed to be there for 45 minutes. We didn't do that photo. But,
yeah, smart.
You know.
Yeah.
I sent it to the head of marketing. I said, it's 20K, but I can get you 5K off. Do you want to do it? Like, nah.
That's great.
So,
Mike, you brought up, that this might not work, in different countries and different environments. And then, Andrew, one thing we wanted to talk to you about is we know you have some experience, shooting here and shooting in Australia, and we wondered if you had any kind of commentary on what the environment is like for a photographer in those two different markets.
I mean, yeah, cool. And I think there's so many talented photographers in Australia, right? So many talented photographers in North America. The biggest thing I really notice is Vancouver's quite a small city. Okay, like where I think downtown Vancouver is like 900,000 people. If you do the big ring, it's like 2.5 million or something. Melbourne's like 6 million. So it's like you move from one to the other, and there's a different scale of things happening.
Sure.
If we want to talk about licensing, I use the same educational terminology and policy, and it flies in both countries. Because I think a bit like you, it's simple, it's succinct, they understand it, and it makes it simple for them, and they value the fact that if we're doing a multi-client option at the start, it's saving them money.
Yeah, right.
And everyone gets good photos instead of like some jackass with his iPhone.
That's me.
Yeah. Which I think that's a really good point for some people out there. Is like, if you can communicate to your clients that getting multiple people involved at the start is better for them for two things. It's like everyone gets good photos and everyone gets it for less.
Yeah.
So it's better for the project, right? In the end.
Here's a question. Yeah. Something I struggle with, like, as soon as there's more than 2 people involved in the shoot, say there's 3 parties licensing, it becomes like the billing becomes a headache, the shot selection becomes a headache. And I try to enforce, and I'm like, if no one's there or there's one representative, but always we get someone who wants some special exception. Do you put a limit on that, on the cost sharing before the shoot, or is it a free for all and you have 7 or 8 people coming to you?
The beauty of multi-client is your client does all that. Yeah, it's you, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they get the benefits of the cost savings, but they get a little bit more work that their staff has to do, because they've got to field all that. And I've got one now at the moment, and it's a real headache. And we didn't get everyone signing up beforehand. And now we did, but they didn't. We're waiting on someone to get their selects back to us. And I've basically just said, I'm not starting the post-production until I've got all the selects. Sorry. Because it's, it's harder to keep things consistent.
What's your workflow when you say that? Like, I basically, if I put the camera down and we move a piece of furniture, you're buying the photo. Do you deliver like 50 proofs and then let them pick? Or are you more like,
I deliver proofs.
Okay.
Yeah. I deliver proofs. Yeah. And it might be.
What would you say the percentage? Sure. What would you say the percentage of the proofs get bought most shoots?
Well, we sort of say it's 15 images in a day. Seems to be about right. But the proofs will vary between 20 and 30, but some of them might be variations. It might be people in, people out.
Yeah. Right.
If it's an office space, they're going to pick the one with the people in, but you feel obliged to do it without the people.
Yeah, you do both. Yeah.
Okay. So how does that work with you, Mike? I didn't realize you sort of work like that.
Well, so I I
I
had
like the sound of it.
I had a shoot one time where they kept us there until like 2 a.m. making 40 pictures. And then I sent them the proofs and they bought like 8. And I'm like, you cannot do that to me. And I will never let that happen again. So I basically say in my contract that, if we're there and we finish a photograph, that means we put the camera down, we select the composition, we go all the way through to moving furniture and so on and so forth. Then if we've made a photo, you're paying for the photo. But and if you're not on set, then the photographer's interpretation is final. Because I just can't stand when someone's not there and then they're like, well, why didn't you get a shot of this, or how come you didn't do that? Or I'm like,
that's a problem.
Because if you were there, you would have seen that there was a backhoe digging a hole behind me, and then there was nuclear warfare in the next lot over, and then just like all these other things going on that you have no idea. Like I promise you, I got the best shot. It almost feels like when that happens, it's almost like they're assuming incompetence on my part. Like I didn't see the hero shot that they thought existed, but like I didn't take that shot because literally the next lot over was a construction site and you wouldn't want that in your photo. So I just said, if you're not there, what's done is done. And if you want to come, I will. I love when people come on set. Are you kidding me? Bring 4 or 5 people on set. We'll have a great lunch. We'll have a little party. I get everyone laughing. It's a good time. But if you're not there, you're gonna pay for the photos that I take. End of. Because and I'm sure you do this too. Like if I'm lifting furniture and like I had back surgery a year and a half ago, and another thing I was like, look, if I am going to go through physical discomfort to move objects, you're gonna pay me the $100 and whatever for the photo. You know what I mean? So
which is literally you're just covering the post-production of the photo at that point as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then
you're covering the time to actually
when they see the proofs and the windows are blown out and there's little warts in the wall and there's spiral alarms and sprinklers and there's a truck out the window with cones in the back and everything, and they're like, I don't like that photo. Well, it's like, if you tell me why you don't like the photo, I could probably fix it, and then you probably love the photo. So I just deliver the finals right there, and then that way everyone loves all the photos right off the bat. And if there's never a question of, oh, we don't like this one because the lines are a little bit crooked, and there's a handicap ramp installed or something, and we want to take that out. They might just not even go for it at all. But if I edit it first and make it perfect, then they'll just take it and they'll love it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the devil you don't know type of thing. And so I just, anyway, long answer to your short question. That's how I arrived at my, if I take a photo, you buy the photo policy. Yeah.
So I've just seen a question from AJ there. Said, do you do post before proofs? Yes, I do a little bit of post, and I mean, for those of us that have gone through the various iterations of Capture One or Lightroom, it does a lot better job now than it used to. So you can hack something together pretty quickly with not a lot of effort that looks acceptable. And I deliver all mine as a PDF, multi-page PDF, which gives them the option to actually make some notes on it. So then, I think that becomes part of my educational process with the clients. It's like, we do this way because then you guys get to actually see it. You get to pin them up on the wall because it's on a letter-sized bit of paper. And you can have a Curie council about it and vote on it if you really want to, which isn't always good when you get the signs back and your favorite photo's got like half a tick next to it. And then I think it's pretty, the longer you've had a client and you've been doing proofs with them, the more they realize they're proofs. And we have the tools in digital to make them the way they need them to look, I mean, and we
Andrew,
could get onto a whole conversation about look if we wanted to, but
yeah, definitely. Andrew, do you have are most of your clients recurring clients, would you say?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. This year I've had a swathe of new clients. which has been really, really refreshing.
Yeah.
A lot
But
of
do you expect them to be
new
returned?
inquiries.
Mm-hmm. I have two.
I had an assistant once who was his own photographer. He was a photographer, and I asked him about what he thought about clients, and he said, if they don't come back, I haven't done my job.
Mm-hmm.
That was his ethos, and I actually think that's a really good ethos.
I think that's
if
sort of how I operate.
Wanting a second shoot. Yeah,
that's sort of how I operate too. I almost never work for somebody once, and I think that's maybe a difference here that we have to you, Mike, is that from gathering, we've had quite a few conversations now, and it seems like you do have a lot of clients that just swing through and grab you for one project. And I feel like maybe that's part of the frustration where you're educating somebody, because the beginning of a relationship is complicated.
Yes.
And once you've done 13 shoots together, I just had some clients just text me and they're like, hey, are you free on the 13th? And I'm like, yeah, just tell me where to go. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that's it. There's no communication that needs to be done. So
you almost don't need to send them an estimate because they know exactly what it's going to be.
Oh yeah,
because it was no different to the last one, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's
they
the
know.
Best. If you get 5 clients like that, you're set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I also
you haven't got kids, Mike. Need 6 if you can have a kid.
Yeah.
Provided they send you 10 jobs a year, and then you're in business. But I do have, and while the one-off clients, they can be a little bit more difficult just to get up to speed. I think it's a lot of fun because they usually bring projects that are so different than what I usually shoot. Like I just shot a Rodeo Drive boutique store I put this on Instagram, but I am the least fashion conscious person on the planet. I show up and my assistant is like, what are you wearing? We need to fix this. And I got hired to shoot this really swanky, high-end Italian designer store in Beverly Hills. And I'm like, this isn't my thing, but it's totally cool and fun for a day. And we're gonna put tons of effort in, and we're gonna make it look amazing. But it's really cool, to get the creative juices flowing on a different subject. So I don't necessarily just want the 5 recurring clients. I do enjoy that I get those one-offs who bring me something new.
Totally.
And you get to shoot something crazy.
Yeah.
And so, but
variety is the spice of life, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
AJ had a good question. How about when the marketing person you've built the relationship with leaves?
That's great because they leave to go
somewhere.
That's
a great opportunity.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Because now you have the relationship with them at a new place, and you still have the relationship with the firm they were at. That's ideal.
You got to get in and meet the new marketing person really quick.
And you got to say, hey,
they might be bringing someone from somewhere else.
I work with Jessica, who just left, and here's what we've done, and here's our arrangement, and I'd love to keep it going. So let me know.
Right.
And then Jessica.
That's also the benefit of working with not just the marketing person, but really getting to know the architects when they come on site and stuff. Because once the whole team wants you, then once the marketing person leaves, that's just great. Yeah.
I mean, in some respects, it's like who's the real decision maker, And I find with some of the larger firms, for some of the projects, the decision maker is the marketing person, but for other projects, it's the principal, the design principal, because he's like, I want Tom or Mike or Andrew, whereas the marketing person's like, oh, this is a pretty not, we'll just go and get Fred.
Right.
It's not as important a job. So knowing many people is important.
Yeah.
And I have had that happen where the marketing person leaves and they try to hire another photographer, and then the principal is like, get Mike back in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and I think something that's very valuable is consistency. When you have a brand or a firm or whatever it is, and you've been shooting with them for 5 or 10 or 15, however many years, they're not going to want to shift gears and change up their whole look without something going seriously wrong. It would be the same thing as a photographer just deciding one day to completely change their retouching style and go from, dark and moody to light and bright, and then try to reinvent themselves, it would take years, right? Especially with the rate of projects that an architecture firm does, it would take years to update and tons of money to update the portfolio and so on. So that's a great question.
Yeah, I've got one client here who they have a different photographer for different areas of their expertise.
Sure.
So they keep most of the people in Vancouver working, which is great for all of us, and I think quite healthy. Frustratingly, like I haven't done an educational project with them for 5 or 6 years because someone else has, and they want to keep it consistent.
It's funny that you say that because one of my biggest clients, I talked to them one time. They had a really cool project coming up, and the project architect had said he'd like to work with me on it. And I talked to the marketing person, and I was like, hey, this stadium is coming up, and I'd love to work with you on it. And they're like, oh yeah, well you're a healthcare guy. And I'm like, healthcare guy?
Yeah.
Like I shoot healthcare for you and one other client. It's not my specialty. It's just that's just, you put me in that box. I don't know. Look at my portfolio.
Yeah.
Am I crazy? I don't think there's that much of a difference between what you normally do and if it, maybe I have delusions of grandeur, but I think put anything in front of me and I'll make the best damn pictures possible. You know what I mean?
Oh, no question. Yeah.
That's self-confidence, right?
Yeah.
Totally. We know we can do it. I had the same thing as you guys there, where there was a new swimming pool in Vancouver, and there's been 3 swimming pools in Vancouver in the last 8 years. And they rang me, and then they're like, "Oh, we've had so-and-so do them. So I don't know why I'm calling you, because we're just going to get them to do it." What's the point?
Right. Yeah. He's the swimming pool guy. Yeah.
What a niche thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't. I mean, I've done 2 prisons, and I've got a courthouse coming next month because I've done correctional work.
Yeah. Right.
You have prisons up there in Canada, in the Great White North?
Well, they call them correctional centers.
Okay.
Actually,
I'm like, prison.
Did you know the American Institute of Architects has a specific awards program for prisons?
I believe that.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I believe
it's
that.
The only one in the world.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose it's because it's privatized, right? But,
Yeah. All right. So, Andrew, we've got a couple minutes left until we're scheduled to be done. We can go over time if need be. But is there anything else you wanted to bring up or chat about while we're talking here?
No, it's good to have a yak with both of you guys. I'd be interested to hear what your opinions between the difference between Australia and Canada are.
Mike, you're gonna take this
in terms of style, or know.
Yeah, well, I mean, we started talking about licensing and process and things like that, but I'm going to throw it out. What do you think makes the Australian photographs of architecture look different?
I think there is we talked with Andy. Remember, did you tune into that talk with Andy? He's going to murder me for forgetting his last name.
Andy McPherson.
Yeah.
Up in Queensland. It's Queenslander.
And he said that there's sort of this island mentality where there's a lot of copying going on down there, and it's very almost insular. And everyone has to do whatever the hot topic of the moment is doing. And so you have this sort of mass of photographers chasing the same style. And you don't do, I think the Canada in you prevents you from doing that, but your work has a very organic sort of natural feel to it. Whereas in Australia, there's a lot of the color is sucked out, super light, super bright.
Yeah, I would say I can feel the sun. I would say I can feel the sun being high in the sky in the Australian photos, whereas in the Canadian photos, I feel like there's a lot more atmosphere. If that makes sense.
I would love to work in Canada, but I would not love to work in Australia. And I don't know if that's, I just see those photos, like those Pacific Northwesty, or even like Nova Scotia, and you know, the way that double space works. There's these great sprawling, beautiful photographs, whether it's these tall trees or there's windswept, you know, heath landscapes on the East Coast. And I think it's so beautiful. But the Australian, it's hot, it's packed in tight. I'm like, for that reason, I'm out.
I'm just remembering a shoot. It was the middle of February in Melbourne, which is like usually when you get your 10 days of plus 45 Celsius. And the windows weren't cleaned on the house. So what did I spend an hour and a half, 2 hours doing? Right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to do that. It's not.
Yeah, that's the glamorous life of the architectural photographer, is window cleaning and trash can moving and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I think, sorry, why I asked that question, Mike, and I think you totally hit on it, is like because the light is so different, the architecture's been designed so differently that the photographers are actually reacting to what the architecture's doing. Like it took me a couple of years to sort of come to this consensus, but I feel like, and having grown up in the houses in Australia, they're providing shelter from that 60 to 70 degree sun that's straight overhead. So things like in the middle of the day, in film days, you did pack up and you didn't do anything. I'm told. I didn't do it back then. Whereas here it's so low and soft. And all my clients here want big sweeping beams of light coming through the houses. Right? Whereas in Australia, they don't want that because it means the sun protection wasn't designed properly.
Sure.
Right?
Interesting.
So I think that I think personally that's generated a difference.
So
and
I
just got to approach.
Like, we have a similar in LA. We have a similar climate to maybe not. I don't know. It's just as hot in the summer. It gets nuking here. And I still love that golden light raking through these modern homes. You know. But I think that's also like, you think of California, you think of golden sunlight on the Pacific. That's just, it's quintessential. You think of the PCH, beautiful sunset. Whereas in Australia, I do think you think of that like sun beaming down on you. So
I notice it every time I go back, how hard it is on my eyes now. I don't have great eyes in glare, but coming from here to there, it's just like, if I forget my sunglasses on a day of photography, I'm up shit creek without a paddle, like totally. I have to go and buy a pair.
Right.
Oh, right, Tom, gang. I wanted to ask you something, because so before we run,
no, please.
You said I do quite a lot of healthcare work as well, and you do quite. I know you do quite a bit. It's, it's probably not a huge, massive portion of it, but what do you get out of it? Because I personally get quite a lot out of photographing hospitals, even though they're not like super glamorous projects.
Yeah, they're not, but they're not always super glamorous, but they're they usually have budgets and they have materials, and they get me traveling a good bit, which is nice. For me, it isn't. It's always fun to shoot a big tall tower or a little modern house, but for me it isn't so much the subject matter always. It's the people I'm working with and their enthusiasm, and the people who spent 3 years of their life working on the hospital are just as enthusiastic as the people who spent the 3 years working on a super tall tower. So the relationships for me are very important.
I mean, arguably that building is more important to humanity than the tower as well, right? I've always found that the healthcare architects are just so passionate about what they're making and what good it's doing. I really enjoy that. So it's a people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find anything that that the machines are interesting, the rationale behind the decisions that get made is interesting. Like when these are like serious topics, like these are people who have cancer who are trying to, get their lives saved, and they're trying to figure out, how best to do that with these buildings. And like, it's to hearing them, say that, oh, well, we cited this on this side of the building because now the infusion chairs can be here and they look over the water, and like this is a very like the worst time in these people's lives, and they can sit there and look out over the bay, and it's like a sort of a nice moment for them. And that stuff it matters. So
it is amazing how much thought actually goes into pulling something like that off,
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it's
there's a reason that those buildings take so long.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's funny at the same time, the small stuff that gets overlooked. I have a close friend who's an architect actually, who has leukemia. And so I spent a lot of days in the hospital with him when he was in the hospital for about 4 months at one point. And like the devices on the ceiling with the blue, like the whatever they are, Wi-Fi things, and the devices on the hospital ceilings that have they'll have like a really bright blue LED. And every time he got moved to a new room, I'd bring a piece of gaff tape with me, and I'd climb up on his hospital bed and stick it over it, because all night long he had this little blue light on him that they put millions of dollars into this room, and then they've got like this laser shining on him at night while he's trying to sleep. So funny, the little stuff gets overlooked,
Yeah.
So
I'll leave it at this. I shot a hospital once, and the wrong elevator got installed, so a stretcher couldn't fit in with a nurse either side of it. Somehow that got by. I don't know.
That bad was news.
I mean, you can't fix that.
No. Oh, that's painful. Yeah. Emilio, that's funny. Yeah, no, I'm lucky, and Chicago's on top of their vaccines. So I did get my second dose today, and that's why I'm a little low energy here, as I kind of got my butt kicked by side effects today. I was in bed for most of the day. So
we're glad that you are fully vaxxed up. Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Hey.
Get on a plane. I haven't been on a plane since
I think we're
March
still like 50 plus age group here. So I got a bit to wait. So.
Oh yeah, you'll get there soon.
Are they doing it in 5-year age brackets in California, Mike?
They're supposed to be opening it up to everyone pretty soon. I'm sure it's going to be a stampede.
19th. Biden just said the 19th. Yeah. So of April,
so,
everyone's supposed to be on
hopefully soon, and hopefully the Canadian fiasco gets resolved, and you get the shot, so. And we'll all be back to normal work schedules pretty soon. So that's
down and see my friends in Washington.
Oh yeah, right.
Seattle. I haven't been to Seattle for ages. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, guys.
So far.
That's Andrew Latreille from Vancouver and Melbourne, creating some amazing work, and Tom Harris, our vaccine guinea pig, and me, Mike Kelly. We are signing out for the night. Thank you guys for the awesome questions. I hope you guys found this valuable, and girls.
Thanks,
hope everyone found this valuable.
Thanks, fellas. That was fun.
And we will see you on the next one. Remember,
it's a pleasure to have you.
This will remain live for infinity, I suppose, infinity and beyond. Have a good evening, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Don't. There we go. Okay, the stream has ended, and we are